Coming up on Tekzilla, Macworld 2010. What's it like without Apple? Hybrid hard drives, are they ever coming? We asked an Ann Shimpey for the scoop. Moving your website to a new host, find out the right way to migrate with CNET's Tom Merritt. A great mic for under 100. Veronica's got your answer, and so much more. Roast that rib and slather on the barbecue sauce, because Tekzilla starts now. This episode of Tekzilla is made possible by GoToAssist Express, Netflix.com, and GoDaddy.com. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
Welcome to Tekzilla, hands-on reviews of the latest tech and how to make the most out of the gear you've already got.
Whether you're a beginner or tech support for your friends and family, if you've got a question about tech or the proper technique for catching Cheetos, we've got an answer for you.
Actually, you've got an answer to that one.
Yeah, who's got two thumbs and knows how to catch Cheetos in her mouth?
Veronica Taco Belmont.
That's who.
Yes, actually, in honor of Veronica Taco Belmont, not my nickname for her, but a lovely nickname, I ate at Taco Bell last night, which has me thinking about geek food. That and the crazy number. We got a lot of emails about Cheetos.
Yeah,
Cheetos
people
catching.
like the Cheetos. Hey.
Apparently we should be eating on every show.
Stupid human tricks. What do you want? It's it's like a thing I can do.
Oh my goodness.
It's not just Cheetos. It's anything.
Anything?
I'm trying to prevent
M&Ms,
from coming up with any weird double entendres, but I'm pretty good at catching things in my mouth. You know, like marshmallows and Cheetos, and I used to take it when I was in my AP Bio class. For some reason, my friend Jacob and I used to take Cliff Bars and take little hunks out of them and roll them into balls and then just throw them across the room. I'm not helping. I'm making it worse.
No, you're not.
Sorry.
So, not to change the subject, but I'm going to right now.
It's
with
time.
A grind of the gearbox and a screech of the tires. Macworld back this year, Apple gone, and you know what? I think it actually was pretty good.
Really?
You haven't been to the show floor yet. Thursday, the show floor was packed. It was really interesting.
I am going tomorrow, but...
Because usually there's like the Macworld show floor, which isn't that huge. It's not a huge show to begin with, even in big Apple years. But there's usually this giant black booth in the middle of the show floor, and it's got the new Apple Shiny, and everyone at Macworld, all 24, 22, however many thousands of people are there, are usually all trying to look at the new product at the same time.
Right, especially right when the show floor opens.
Yes, it's incredibly annoying, and there's always like this vapor around the rest of the show floor because everybody's sucked to the black hole of Apple lust. And you know what? No big giant 100-yard Apple booth meant everybody was out in the rest of the show floor, and you know what? People were pretty stoked. I talked to a lot of vendors, more vendors than I expected. A lot of activity on the show floor. A lot of happy vendors I spoke to. Not a huge number of new products, but that's not exactly unusual for Macworld.
A lot of iPad accessories?
No iPad accessories at all that I saw.
Really?
Yeah.
They just haven't had enough time to get them.
I don't think they have a lot of iPod, iPhone accessories. A lot of.
Because usually when there's a big announcement at Macworld, they've had a little bit of time, a little bit of notice about what it might be, or at least the size of what it might be, and so they have at least a crappy prototype of what they're going to be making.
Maybe I just didn't see them, but I got to be honest with you. I think the more as Apple moves forward, the more they're keeping stuff under wraps because they want to sell all of the accessories themselves.
So what were some of the things you saw?
Okay. Not all of these are new, but all of these kind of caught our eyes. There were a ton of vendors out there. FastMac, Dr. Bob, Microsoft, VMware, OmniGroup, BusyMac had BusyCal, which I'm actually going to check out because it looks like a much improved version of iCal. GetUncommon.com is worth checking out if you can't find the perfect cover for your iPhone. You upload your image, photo, whatever. They print it on a white slip-on cover. 2 days later, it's in your mailbox. They promise. If you have sizzling lap issues like Veronica, one of Thermopac's pads might be just the thing to slip between you and your MacBook. The clear insert you're looking at shows off the sodium sulfate decahydrate in gel form that's inside the Thermopac. They call it their heat shift technology. It basically softens as it draws the heat from your notebook, stiffens back up as it cools, which is really similar to sodium sulfate hand warmers that they sell at gun shows. Blue Microphones offered up an updated Mikey stereo mic for your iPod or iPhone, but we couldn't take our eyes off the Yeti, Blue's new high-end USB mic. 3 condenser capsules rest under the screen. The body of the mic packs a volume control, mute button, zero latency headphone output, and my favorite bit, a 4-polar pattern selector that switches the mic capsules between stereo, cardioid, omni, and bidirectional recording behavior. Sweet.
Nice.
Yes. Bone was back on their battle to basically be the cutest USB manufacturer ever. And of course, they have their super useful, super short iPod cable. But I gotta say, the ridiculously durable USB thumb drives could definitely give MemoBot a run for their money. They're also selling them there, so cheap.
Ooh,
so you look through the catalog.
How cheap is cheap?
Well, I don't remember, but they were cheaper.
All right.
Here. Look, they're shiny. Dog bones. In the I Want category, Smart was showing off their interactive HD whiteboards and monitors, along with the Smart Table, which is aimed at early education, think 3 to 8-year-olds. Included applications, a development environment, and I gotta say, it would be really fun to actually draw on that one. 720p either on an HD TV or a short throw projector is pretty slick. Kanto AV Systems offers some solid sounding speakers, but the touch controls built into the wireless subwoofer really caught my eye. The quality of the audio on the wireless sub was really nice too. Jelliskins, by the way, had the best spouse treat ever, at least for my spouse, a new MacBook lid skin based on the British Keep Calm and Carry On posters from World War II, which, by the way, pretty much seems to be what Macworld is doing. Off the record, I heard pre-reg attendance was pretty much like the pre-registrations, almost as high as last year. Media turnout this season has been huge, and oh yeah, the lack of a giant Apple booth in the middle of the show floor meant folks were in the smaller booths earlier. I think I mentioned that, but I just wanted to say it again. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next year, because they had a lot of attendees, almost as many attendees this year as last year is the word.
That's good. I'm glad it's still alive. I went to the last Macworld in Boston when they were still doing an East Coast version, and it was just kind of sad, you know, to see it leave the East Coast and only be in San Francisco, and then after Apple decided they were no longer going to be presenting there, it was kind of like, well, what's going to happen to Macworld now?
But it was always like, that always got the most media attention, but there's always so many people are there for the learning opportunities at Macworld.
Absolutely.
And, you know.
Well, good. I'm excited to go tomorrow. I'm definitely going to go check out this booth. I always can use more cute, gummy
USB
accessories. You know, being the only tech support for friends and families is like an exalted position. There's nothing like getting a phone call during dinner to help someone figure out how to open an email that makes you feel really needed and hassled. Thankfully, there's our sponsor, GoToAssist Express, possibly the easiest way to give tech support to friends, family, and coworkers all over the world. It's been a lifesaver a few times for me already, and I've only been using it for a few months. So, here's my story. My dad was having trouble getting everything set up on his brand new computer and asked me for help. I sent him a GoToAssist Express invite over email, he clicked on the link, and I got right to work. No complicated installs, no configurations, no hassle. Now, I use a Mac and my dad uses a PC, but I could share his screen and make all the changes I needed to remotely. I could even do a live chat to let him know exactly what I was going to be doing next. And even though I'm over 3,000 miles away, I can still give him and my mom tech support whenever they need me. Okay, well, maybe that's one potential downside. If you want to give GoToAssist Express a try, visit gotoassist.com/Tekzilla to start your free 30-day trial and support us by supporting our sponsors.
Well, welcome to this week's Freebie Download Pick, a free program that we find useful, fun, or incredibly interesting. This week, Geek Tool 3. Apple loves touting OS X's user-friendly GUI, but deep down it's a powerful Unix-like kernel. So why not take advantage of all that power with Geek Tool 3? Exploiting OS X's Unixiness, this unassuming little tool sports some powerful features that let you display any image, text file, or shell script command output on your desktop. This means you can see your photos, log files, updating script processes straight behind your windows without pulling up a terminal window, text editor, or image viewer. Anytime you want a new geeklet, just drag and drop from the system preferences and select and define your options, and you're done. A small warning for new users, Geek Tool 3 is designed for serious geeks. It's at its best if you write and run a lot of scripts, but if you're up to the challenge or just want a really sweet way to show off photos on your desktop, you should get Geek Tool 3 today. It's free. Later on in the show, we're going to walk you through the process of moving your website from one web host to another. But first, let's talk about hard drives. More specifically, just when you think the whole solid state rotating hard drive thing can't get any messier, we get this question from Hamid. He writes in, are hybrid hard drives out yet? You know, so I can use Vista Ready Drive, the tech where the computer loads some of the operating system off into the flash chip of the drive to help the PC boot faster. I really want to see this in action. Hamid, we figure we go to our favorite source of all things SSD, and Anand Shimpi from AnandTech.com. Welcome back to Tekzilla, Anand.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Should we start by explaining what a hybrid drive is, since it's like one of those concepts that was like everybody was talking about for 6 months and then it just seemed to go away?
So the idea behind a hybrid drive is you have a single drive, and inside the drive you've got both rotating mechanical storage and solid state NAND flash storage. And the idea is that either the intelligence is in the OS or it's in the drive itself, but it puts the things that you're actually using in the flash part of the storage, and the things that you're not using, very frequently accessed stuff like that, it puts in the mechanical storage. The idea is that you get the best of both worlds, and you don't need to worry about managing data. Because right now, the solution that I advocate is you basically have an SSD that has your OS and your apps on it, and then all of your media files and maybe your games, stuff like that, go on your mechanical drive. Which means you've got 2 drive letters, you've got to partition stuff. You just have to play, you have to pay attention to it. You have to do a little bit of work. In theory, the hybrid drive takes care of all of that. Have we seen any in practice? No, because the problem is that SSDs and NAND flash in general are still very, very expensive. So tacking any meaningful amount of NAND flash onto a mechanical drive just skyrockets the price, right? And no one wants that. What they want is a terabyte drive, but you pay like maybe an extra 30% and you get an SSD in it. And just the economies of scale are not quite there yet.
So if you're thinking about an SSD drive or upgrading your hard drive at this point, go ahead. It's not like hybrid drives are going to show up this summer.
I mean, you might have some solutions. I don't, I haven't tried them. And I hate to say it, there's just a lot that can go wrong with these things, right? It's just not worth it at this point. And it's pretty simple, right? If you follow the basic rules, you keep your page file, you keep your applications, and you keep your OS on the SSD. And then anything that is just like media, so your movies, your videos, and even large games, right? World of Warcraft installations like 20 gigs. When on a device that you're paying multiple dollars per gigabyte, you don't want to put WoW on your SSD. You put those on like a $70 hard drive, and the rest goes on your $300 SSD, and you'll reap the benefits, right? One of the biggest benefits of an SSD is you start up your computer, and all the apps launch like they were just in memory. So anything that is a pain to start up and you start up frequently, just throw it on your SSD.
What are you thinking these days? I think I saw a new SSD drive waving by the screen earlier. What are your picks? What has you excited with SSD drives right now?
So here's the thing about SSDs. There are the SSDs that are interesting, that are exciting, that are coming out soon, and then there are the ones that you're going to buy. And the ones that you're going to buy, honestly, my recommendations haven't changed.
Okay.
The best overall drive is still Intel's X25M. I've gone through, I've used a lot of these in my own machines. I use them all in my test beds. If you can afford them, the X25M is great. If you're running Windows 7 or Windows XP or Windows Vista, the Indelinks-based drives are a decent, lower-priced alternative. So these are like the OCZ Vertex line, the OCZ Agility line, the Corsair Extreme series, G-Skill Falcon, Falcon 2, like all those Indelinks-based drives. So those are the recommendations. Now what's coming, we've got a company called SandForce, and they actually are working with companies like OCZ, Corsair, all the SSD makers out now. They're sampling them with this new controller they have. They've got 2 versions of it, the SF1200 and SF1500. Now, these are enterprise-level controllers, and the rumor is that SandForce is the company that's making Seagate's first SSDs. These are actually really, really interesting controllers. The way they get around some of the inherent problems and performance issues with NAND flash is they basically write less to the drive.
Really?
And the way it works is, it's kind of neat. If you look at how compression works, right? So with lossless compression, you have a certain amount of data, and you simply represent it with a smaller amount of data. And that's effectively what SandForce's controller does. It uses a bunch of things, deduplication, compression, stuff like that, to take the writes that you write to the drive, say you install Office or you install Windows, and it finds a way to represent that data with a smaller amount of data in real time.
So you kind of hack your way to an increased write speed and a longer lifespan on the drive.
The SandForce-based stuff is really, really interesting. And then the one I held up is this little baby, which is a new drive. They all look the same, but it's a new drive from Crucial. Crucial and Micron both make the drive. It's called the Real SSD C300. What makes this interesting, they don't do any of the weird SandForce stuff where, this drive is more akin to the Intel and the Indelinks drives. What makes this one interesting is it's the first native 6 gigabit SATA drive on the market.
Can it actually
SSD.
use that pipe? Can it use is it taking advantage of the SATA 6 potential?
Absolutely. So if you look at the best SATA 3 gigabit SSDs on the market, their sequential read speed is pretty much limited to about 260 megs per second, which is a ton, right? Like that's super fast for a single drive. This thing can break, 340, 350.
Wow.
Yeah, to do that, obviously you need a SATA 6 gigabit controller, which is coming on, a ton of gigabyte boards, a lot of Asus boards, or you can buy, one of these like little add-in cards. And what I've seen, at least in the IO-bound tests, like you're looking at like 20 to 40% better performance just by going to 6 gigabit versus 3 gigabit.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today, Anand. Awesome info as always. AnandTech.com is the website. If you haven't been there, you should go there right now. It is really, really jam-packed with good stuff. Hey, take a moment to thank one of our sponsors, Death, Broken Hearts, your favorite band taking a little time off. There are bigger disappointments than getting home with a new video game and finding out you spent $60 on a DVD jam-packed full of gaming suck. I can't help you with Death or taxes. My dating history, a nightmare. But our sponsor, GameFly, the largest online video game rental service, they can help you avoid buying a crappy game. We're talking thousands of new and classic titles across all consoles and handhelds at your fingertips for $15.95 a month. You can rent 1 to 4 games at a time. You keep them for as long as you like. 65 hours to finish that game? No problem. GameFly has no late fees, no due dates, and the shipping is always free. Once you're done playing the game, you send it back. GameFly is going to send you the next available game on your list. If you really like a game, you can even buy it at a discount, and they'll send you the manuals and all the stuff from inside the box for free. Now, free. We like that, right? Tekzilla fans get a 2-week free trial, but only if they sign up at gamefly.com/Tekzilla. Some restrictions do apply. See the site for details, but please keep Tekzilla coming by trying out our sponsors like GameFly.
Looks like it's time for another website we just can't get enough of. A website that we just can't stay away from because it's too useful, too funny, or just too darn irresistible. This week's pick, chatroulette.com. We've covered sites like Omegle before, which sticks you in an anonymous chat room with a stranger. But today we're taking it one step further with Chat Roulette. Warning, you may potentially see things that are, well, not exactly safe for work. But sometimes you may actually have a really thoughtful, insightful, or creative experience with the person on the other side of the camera, such as the guy that draws people's portraits or that dude that dresses up like a giant leopard. Obviously, the big difference here is that both of you need to have a web camera, so the anonymous factor goes right out the window. Apparently, folks have run into, quote, famous people too, like the cast of Jersey Shore or the Jonas Brothers. But chances are, you'll probably see something gross or disturbing as often as you'll see something interesting or cool. So if you've got the constitution for it, check out Chat Roulette. And if you don't like what you see, just hit that next button and off you go. Still to come, selecting the best $100 podcast mic and your recommendations for gaming laptops, all coming up later in the show. But first, something a lot of you aspiring webmasters have been itching to know, but we're too afraid to ask. Migrating web hosts. Moving your website from one host to another is a lot like changing addresses. The overall process is pretty straightforward, but there are plenty of things you need to watch out for when making the move. Here to give us a step-by-step on successfully migrating your website from an old host to a new one is CNET executive editor and my co-host on the Sword and Laser podcast, Tom Merritt. It's great having you on the show.
Hey, it's good to be here.
I'm going on Buzz Out Loud next week too.
It's an exchange program.
An exchange program, that's good. So you're like super web guy. You do a lot of this web host migration stuff all the time. You have a lot of different shows. You have a lot of different websites.
I have a dozen blogs or so.
A dozen?
Yeah.
Huh, that's more than I have.
Belmont08.com.
Oh, yeah, my bid for my presidential campaign.
Yeah, I'm sorry that didn't work out, by the way.
You know, there's always the next 3 years.
But yeah, I just ran into some trouble with my old web host where they were having some downtime issues, and I was like, you know what, I need to get to a new web host, and that's always a pain.
Yeah.
So I just migrated everything out, did a little CNET TV video, figured I could share it with the Tekzilla crowd too.
Yeah, well, take us through the process.
All right, so you want to start by getting all your files off the old site, right? So you'll need an FTP program for that. I'm assuming if you're migrating a web host, you probably already know how to put the files up on a web host. So this part should seem pretty obvious.
You have a little experience with that
already.
But
yeah, I like FileZilla. There's WizFTP is still out there in a free form here and there.
CuteFTP, do people still use
CuteFTP? CyberDuck is one for the Mac. But files,
I use Transmit for the Mac.
Do you use Transmit?
It's not free, but
like
it is really, really great, yeah.
Well, FileZilla is free, and free is my favorite price. So you use that to go in and get all of the files from the directory that you're moving. So in my case, I've got a bunch of different sites. I'm only going to move one at a time, just to keep it all straight. And that's really as easy as highlighting everything and just dragging it over into a local file. I do recommend that you just drag this into a brand new file, because a lot of people actually have a directory where they keep all of their files as they put them up and pull them back down. But I say do it clean. That way you're not overwriting anything, and if something goes wrong, you still have your old local backup that you can restore from.
So you think it's better to just copy all your files over using FTP as opposed to using some kind of migration tool?
Yeah, I mean, I don't use a migration tool because I want to be involved in every bit of the process and make sure I get everything. I mean, if you're most of the migration tools are usually moving from a service to another, usually, and I don't trust them. So
should you just follow the same exact file structure as you were using on your previous web host, or is there any special structures depending on which host you're going to?
Well, depending on how your web host works, but most of them, you've got a directory with all your files. Just right-click that, put that on your drive. And that's why I'm saying don't try to use your local file, your local directory. Use this one, and then you'll go to your new web host and create a domain, because you're going to actually move the domain as well. Now, here's one thing that people need to know too, is when you move your domain, create the domain at the new host, move all the files up there, test that all first before going to your registrar and changing your domain name, because you want to make sure it all works so you can have a seamless transition. All the people visiting your site, they get the site in full, no matter what happens. And also, try to do it in as short a time as possible, right? Because if you download the files on Friday and then you get around to uploading them on Monday, and then by Wednesday you change the domain, well, there may be comments or things that were made on your blog over that time that you're going to lose. And that's the other thing. If you're doing something like a WordPress or a TypePad, you want to make sure you go into PHP and pull out all of those files and restore them up at PHP at your new host. So don't forget all of those other little things like databases and CGI bins and all that stuff.
And of course, you should back up everything before you even get started with this process.
Well, that's actually what you're doing to start, right? You're starting by backing it all up
to another place,
and then you're going to put it up in a new place. You're going to make sure it works there, and you're not going to touch anything of that old host. And even after you go into the registrar and you change the name servers, because that's kind of the big step, is like, okay, I want the name servers to point at the new place. Try that out, make sure that's worked. Let that sit for a couple of days, actually, before you go and turn off the old web host, before you cancel that account and delete everything.
Because the DNS has to all propagate throughout the web as well.
It can take an hour, it can take 24 hours for the DNS to propagate, and you also want to make sure that you didn't miss anything. After a week or so of poking around, you may say, oh wait, that script doesn't work anymore because I left that one in the CGI bin. So give yourself a little time.
All right. And that's it. And then you're done.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I have a bigger write-up and a longer video at cnettv.com if folks want to get links and stuff like that. But the main steps are to go slowly and do it in logical order and do it all at once.
Yeah.
And don't try to move a bunch of domains at once. Do one, move on, do the other.
Now, you mentioned that you have 12 or so different blogs on the internet. Where should people find your work? What are your top picks for sites that people should go to?
My top 5 of my own blogs are, just go to tommerritt.com. That's the easiest place because that links out to everything else.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And speaking of migrating your site, are you happy with your current web host? If not, then you need to seriously consider GoDaddy. It's got everything you need to create your own little corner on the net. .com names as cheap as $1.99? Check. Free 24/7 support? Got it. They even offer website builders that will have you up and running in no time. You don't even need a long-term contract. Need your own virtual dedicated server? No problemo. GoDaddy has a whole variety of options to get you all the features that you need. But that's not all. Use the code TECH13 when you check out to score 20% off 1, 2, or 3-year hosting. So if you've been waiting for the perfect upgrade to a new web host, now's the time.
These days, everybody wants to get in on the podcasting act, like Rod in Memphis, Tennessee. Rod wrote in asking, I'm thinking about starting a podcast to complement my blog. However, I am on a budget and I own a MacBook. Are there any quality microphones you can suggest that are compatible with MacBooks but priced under $100? Rod in Memphis, Tennessee. This is actually a much broader question because if it's good for recording voice, it should be good for recording a lot of things.
Yeah, but
right?
there are microphones that are specifically tailored for voice, right. And there are actually a lot of microphones out there that are supposed to be tailored for podcasting or that come in podcast kits. But we'll get to that.
Usually, yeah.
They're not usually the highest quality,
microphone.
but still. At home, I use the Shure SM7B, and that's going to throw you back around $350. So that's not really an under.
The 58?
Huh?
You gave up on the. You gave up on
we
your
still
punk
have them
rock
at home,
roots?
but these are like, it's just a really good vocal mic.
Right.
It's really super high quality.
It's
We
an
use
actual
it with the Fast
like
Track
professional
Pro.
mic, not like the,
Yeah.
You know.
But that's more than you probably need. Like you said, the SM58 is a great vocal mic, although you might want to invest in a little like pop filter or windsock, something to put in front of it so you don't get that sound. I do that a lot when I talk, especially when I'm recording voiceovers or podcasts.
Everything Veronica owns either has like will a split screen work for that?
Where are you going with this? What are you trying to say here?
You always have big, giant, fluffy things wrapped around any microphone that you
I
use
do. I'm very
regularly.
poppy.
Yes, you are poppy.
I punctuate my P's too much.
It doesn't need general perkiness.
And while we're on the short kick, I have the. Where is it?
Can you basically make a pop filter out of like a nylon stocking and a piece of hanger?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
You don't have
We
to,
should
like,
do that
spend, like,
sometime.
$100
Yeah,
on
maybe
a-
next week we can bring in some DIY like pop filters that people can use, because that would be actually super handy for you guys
Best
to
part,
know
of course,
about.
is buying the stockings in the supermarket if you don't have stockings laying around the house.
Well, this is coming from the people that made those replacement ear pads with the socks. You guys remember that? That was awesome.
Sock mod.
That was one of my favorite mods on the show. But this is the Shure X2U, which we've talked about a little bit before. I don't use it with my podcasting station now, but whenever I'm kind of on the go and I have whatever mic is available to me, you can just take the XLR input here and then plug this end into the other side on your computer.
It has phantom power.
And it's great. Yeah, you can have
digital to
mic
analog
gain,
converters,
volume.
analog digital converters.
You actually have a monitor plug here for your headphones. You can listen to it as it's coming through live.
Nice.
So it's about $130, but it's a really good investment if you're going to be doing a lot of mobile podcasting,
Right.
or if you have a lot of microphones at home that you've been using for band setups and just want something that'll work with your computer right out of the box.
What about like Blue has their whole lineup of like the Snowball and the other microphones?
Yeah, I was going to get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit.
so sorry.
I know you're a fan of the Blues.
You got me thinking about USB there. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so as for other mics and setups, there's the Alesis USB mic podcasting kit, like I mentioned, for $100, which Wired actually gave a pretty decent review of.
There was a really bad point when podcasting was like had a lot of buzz, and people were like, "Oh my goodness, we're going to take a crappy Chinese microphone, and we're going to take a crappy Chinese." Not saying anything against Chinese, but basically like the worst possible audio gear that they couldn't sell. They threw in a box and they labeled podcasting, and they sold it to people with a really badly written guide.
Well, sometimes it came with some software, which was helpful. This kit, I think, actually comes with a copy of Audacity on CD. So, if you don't have an internet connection, you can't download.
Yeah, if you have an internet connection to download Audacity.
I don't know why they put it on a CD. That's kind of weird.
So they can say it's in the box.
That's true. It's part of the kit.
Includes free audio editing software. I was mocked recently for my love of Audacity. And then the person who mocked me showed me their insane, like 42,000 filters running simultaneously on their super cool guy setup.
I was the guy doing the mocking probably 5 years ago when I first met Ryan. This is a funny story, actually. When I first met Ryan, we were talking about podcasting, and I was producing the podcast over at CNET, and they had just started up the Engadget podcast.
Which, in the CNET, if you haven't seen it, like the CNET, they had radio studios, like full-on, glorious
like
piles of high-end audio gear, $17,000 worth of mics.
Broadcast quality, like software and editing stuff. And I had just come out of college, too, so I was used to using Pro Tools and all the like super expensive gear. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna use Audacity to edit the podcast." And I go, "Audacity?" Like some kind of big stupid snob. And he still makes fun of me for that. And every single time I say Audacity, I think in my mind, Audacity. Anyway, the Marshall Electronics MXL Studio One is a little bit over your budget, $129, but it has some decent reviews. And finally, as Patrick noted, one of our favorite USB microphones is the Blue Microphones Snowball USB mic, which you can find pretty much all over the internet from anywhere between $80 to $130.
Voted the most likely microphone to be stolen out of the Revision 3 offices.
Yeah, it's cute.
Borrowed semi-permanently.
It's cute. It's just a really nice little microphone. It's good for taking on the go also.
And they have it's a little bulky to turn it into what kind of bag. If you have like a flat computer bag, that big round ball doesn't pack very well.
That's true.
But if you have a backpack, it works pretty well. They have a stainless steel version now too.
Do they?
I saw it.
So all of you probably remember Ben from a couple of weeks ago who needed that gaming laptop, so he would him and his girlfriend could stay on decent terms. Well, a couple of you wrote in offering up your picks of gaming laptops on the cheap. First up, we have John, and he wrote, "Ben asked on last week's show about a gaming laptop for $1,200. Here is an awesome gaming laptop for $900. It's the Asus G60 VX RBXX05. It has a 2.13 gigahertz Core 2, 4 gigabytes of memory, a 320 gigabyte hard drive, drive, and here's the kicker. It has a GeForce GTX 260M GPU. I have this laptop and I get 30 to 40 frames per second at 1366 by 768 on high settings. So it will rip through WoW. John in Philadelphia.
Like a high-end graphics card making all the WoW characters run around like, you know, baseball players from movies in the 20s where they're all like, you know, the hyperactive.
And next we have Zachary. He said, I saw your bid on a gaming laptop on last week's show and thought that I'd point out this laptop, the Toshiba Satellite A505 S6033. I just bought it and I love it. It's got a Core i7, 4 gigabytes of DDR3, and an NVIDIA GeForce 310M for $899. And that should handle WoW just fine.
But what about Crysis, Zachary?
What about Crysis? Yeah, definitely all solid choices for wowing. Another viewer, Jeff, wrote in stating, for $1,200, build the gaming PC that Veronica has now and buy a cheap laptop or a netbook. Yeah.
I like that.
You could do that too, and then you've got...
Which will also run WoW on
the
either
netbook,
machine.
Oh, you mean the gaming PC or the netbook?
If you buy like a cheap, you know...
People have run WoW on netbooks. It's not pretty, but it'll happen. Yeah, it's also a great idea if Ben doesn't mind getting 2 devices instead of 1. In the end, though, gaming on a laptop will also be a more expensive option versus getting a gaming desktop. But the advantage of a laptop is that you can, of course, tote it with you.
And feed your WoW addiction.
Yep. Now that they've got the Wi-Fi on all the airplanes, you know, from Delta to JetBlue and Virgin America, you can play WoW in the air.
Here's the question. Will your Valentine's Day be free of gaming? Or will there be like couples gaming with you and Ryan?
Well, we actually did a...
Because for 2 avid gamers, I never hear of you actually playing the same game at the same time.
We don't. We never play together. And
Were
we
there
never
fragging
play...
issues at an earlier stage of the relationship?
We don't really like to do split screen. And we used to have Xboxes in separate rooms, and we used to actually be able to play at the same time together on different TVs. But one of the TVs was a review unit, so we had to send it back. And so then we lost that little in-house LAN party situation going on.
I have this awesome vision of you guys like both having 2 big 60-inch HD TVs sitting on little like, you know, 70s poofs with your Xbox attached to
Well, you've been to my house. You know how it is. I mean, it was literally like one in the office and one in the living room. So the TVs were technically back to back, just separated by a wall. So if you could kind of envision like the bisection of that, it would be like both of us sitting on here and then playing at screens. And that's someday when I build a home, I'm going to have like a total like gaming nerd den.
You don't want to be side by side. You
no,
want to have a
like,
wall in between you and your beloved.
I don't want to look at what I'm doing. All right. Anyway, that's
true.
That's how it goes down in my house. Yeah.
Oh my
we keep our
goodness.
gaming separate.
We are out of Cheetos, but we have something that is new and improved and exciting. It's the weekly roundup of stand-up comedy called Raffle here on Revision 3. Got a new host on the show, Alex Cole. He's going to give you the best, the funniest, the most hysterical comedy they can track down each and every week. You can find it every Monday at revision3.com/raffle. For everybody watching, we live in your questions, like eye-mouth coordination. What is it? How does one develop it? So email us, Tekzilla at revision3.com. Tech out, product reviews, how-tos. You ask us, we'll do it, but we need your emails. So don't be shy. Send them into Tekzilla at revision3.com.
Even better, send us in a video question. Think of all the fun you can have and the admiration of all your friends and family when they see your mug on our show.
Demonstrating your eye-mouth coordination.
Do that. Just send us a video. Jeez, guys, it's been
Catching
like weeks.
Cheez-Its.
Like I said, they must have been intimidated. Either that or they're all working on their super high-tech, like
HD.
amazing video questions that they've been working on all month, and they're just waiting, biding their time to turn them in.
She would really enjoy seeing a video question. If you have just 15 seconds, upload the 15 seconds of you to YouTube and send us the link in an email with video question in the subject line.
Of course. And as always, you can visit our forums at revision3.com/forum. Share your thoughts, ideas, or comments with other fans of the show. Thank you guys so much for watching.
I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
Till next time, you've been watching Tekzilla. Actually, in honor of Veronica Cheeto catching son of a.
Sorry, what's that?
2. The clear insult in 3, 2. The clear.
Shut up.
The clear insert you're looking at shows off the sodium in 3, 2. The clear insert. A lot of powerful features that you have to work. Geeklet, just gag and drop. In 3, 2. Anytime you. In 3, 2. But first, just when you think the whole. Sorry. Now the technical difficulties are internal, I can no longer read, which is a good thing for an English major.